lead us in the pledge, and then we'll get our program going. Thank you, Janine.
Good evening. Am I on?
It's all the way on, John.
Okay. Can you hear me? There. Okay, could you bow your heads and join me, please? Father God, we come before you this evening and we implore you, Lord God, to be with us as we listen this evening on how to become more informed activists. Lord God, we know that you have blessed us with this country. We know, Lord God, that you have entrusted us with the freedoms and the liberties that we enjoy. And we also recognize, God, that we take the responsibility, Lord, that we have been lax in taking care of that. And so, Father, tonight we ask that you would guide our hearts and our mind, that you would fill us with wisdom, especially as we approach the campaigns, as we approach the election dates, Lord God. We pray that you would give us energy. We pray that you would give us wisdom. And we pray, Lord God, that you would help us to spread the message, Lord God, of the dire need, Lord, for us to pay attention and to steward over this country, Lord God, that you've given us. So we thank you for this evening. We ask that you would bless the food to our bodies, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Do you join me in the pledge? On the screen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Janine. Okay, let's get going. This is sort of a joint meeting with the Northwest Grassroots. As I say, we've been doing this for 55 months. And at the beginning of the year, we sort of affiliated with the Tea Party Patriots to get a little bit more input from the national scene. And so it's sort of a joint meeting. So I just want to go through a few things that the Tea Party Patriots are doing right now. They are challenging the congressional exemption for Obamacare. Why is it that our legislators pass laws and then exempt themselves from following the laws? So that is a challenge that's coming up. Another one that's coming up, and it's really an imminent court ruling that could really cripple Obamacare, and it's called Helbig versus Sebelius. And the American Health Care Act subsidizes people, and how the act reads is that it subsidizes people that are buying insurance, but they're only supposed to be subsidizing people that are going through the health care exchanges set up by the states. And of course, there were only 14 states that set up exchanges, and then everything else was national. And the way the law was written was it was only for the state exchanges that subsidies would be issued. Well, subsidies have been issued overall for the non-state ones as well as the overall government ones, and so this is being challenged in a federal court. If that is overturned, you can imagine the numbers of people that have enrolled in the Affordable Care Act who will then not be entitled to those subsidies, and if that happens, probably a lot of them will cancel their, quote, insurance because it's not subsidized and paid for by the taxpayer, and then, you know, what's going to happen. So that is something that's going to be interesting to watch and listen for. Of course, the Supreme Court has been issuing rulings, and we had the one on Hobby Lobby, which really did say that closely held corporations had the right to express their religious views as far as what they cover, what they don't cover, and that type of thing. And what so many people don't understand is in Obamacare, there are 20 different types of contraception that are covered. And Hobby Lobby only objected to 4, and it was really the morning after type pill, because they feel that that is killing a life, that is abortion, and so that was held up. The other one, which is quite lesser known, is Harris versus Quinn, and what that has to do with is whether states can pass laws that require public employees to pay union dues to unions even though they don't want to belong to that union. They have no desire to be unionized, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was a pretty interesting one, and it was a narrow ruling, but it is something that we can start watching for, to really go forward a little bit more as far as diminishing the power of unions and forcing people to belong, forcing people to pay dues, and that type of thing.
Okay, I just came from Southern California, and I was a county employee. And yes, you had to belong to the union, but if you objected to being a union member, they still took the dues out. That's right. But you designated the charity that it could.
Right, and so this is going to change a lot of that. They have been.
You'll have to repeat the question.
Right. What she was saying is in California, they required, if you objected to paying the dues, you still had to pay the dues, but you could designate what charity those dues would go to. And so basically what this is, it was a 5-4 ruling. The court ruled that no public sector employees, like policemen, firefighters, or teachers, cannot be forced to pay even partial dues to a union they don't intend to ever join. So this has been totally changed, and I'll give that to you if you want to read it over, because it was pretty interesting. And again, it didn't get a lot of attention, but I think a step in the right direction. There was a great ruling for the health care workers.
Most of us didn't even get to vote because when they had the voting.
Well, are you a public sector healthcare worker? You see, this is public sector. But there was the ruling that said that for families, if you were providing care to a disabled child or a disabled parent or whatever, that you didn't have to join the SI, yeah. And so, there's still ways to go. There's still problems, but those were some pretty good those were some fun rulings that we had. And getting them to the Supreme Court is a challenge. That's huge, So we have illegal immigration. I think we're all aware we have illegal immigration, and it's been going on for a good long time. I know some of you are from California, and my oldest child was born in California. John was born in California. We're very familiar with California, but that state is changing so dramatically, it's just a shame. It really is. So on the front page of SpokaneTeaPartyPatriots.com, you will find what the Tea Party Patriots call the toolkit for illegal immigration. And what they have in there are examples of letters, press releases, sign slogans, that kind of thing. It's a 6-page toolkit that you can download. So just go to SpokaneTeaPartyPatriots.com. Scroll down a little, you'll see Immigration Toolkit. It's a good thing to arm yourself with and really see what is it that you can do that can really add your voice to this situation. This video, believe it or not, is at the San Ysidro crossing in California. And it happened in November 2013. How many of us even heard about this? It's pretty amazing.
Well, new tonight, 10 News uncovered this new video of an angry mob armed with rocks confronting the Border Patrol near San Ysidro. Agents tell 10 News this is the first time this has ever happened. And as 10 News reporter Dan Haggerty shows us, they're concerned it may have been just a dry run for a future ambush. Dan.
Yeah, Steve, it happened close to where we are now, just south of the Las Americas Mall. You see the border agents back there by the wall right now, and they admitted that if this was organized, the group could organize again. This is how close it was to an all-out assault. Hundreds of Mexicans storming the border wall last Sunday and recording the whole thing. The first organized attack agents have seen here.
They were combative, throwing rocks and bottles and
flashing gang signs and threatening agents.
Assistant Chief Patrol Pete Vasquez told me the rioters clearly documented this for a reason. Agents just aren't sure exactly why.
We would think if they were going to use it for propaganda, somebody would have stepped forward to maybe lay claim to the video, which no one has done yet.
Hey,
So agents have been using the footage posted to a Mexican blog site to their advantage, checking out every clip and everyone involved. A man holding a child, a woman with one leg straggling behind, others who look like they definitely showed up ready for a fight. A mix of people agents say implies someone brought them together.
We can kind of see there's one gentleman that at the beginning of the video seems well-dressed, kind of leading the event.
An event that forced agents to use pepper spray, put up helicopters, and prepare for worse than rocks and bottles. So what's the point? What are they doing? Who are these guys?
We're not sure at this time. We're still analyzing the video and trying to gather any information that we can.
And agents told me that most of the other organized events that happen on other parts of the border always have a clear message. This one did not. Reporting live tonight, Dan Haggerty, 10 News.
All right, Dan, and we want to give our viewers a really good idea of where this location is right here. This is the Tijuana River Channel right here. This is where the altercation happened. It's about a quarter mile just west of the San Ysidro port of entry. There is no border fence in that location to prevent people from crossing into the U.S.
Pretty crazy. I don't think we really realize what's going on south of us. And Texas, of course, is really having the impact right now. And it's a sad thing. And I was talking to a gentleman tonight, and he says, you know, I haven't met a woman yet who hasn't said that, you know, they really feel that, you know, we need to take care of those children. Now, you have to remember, they don't want to take care of the children. They want the government to take care of the children. Big difference. And, you know, when you're looking at over 50,000 that we need to figure out what in the world to do. And yet, when you really think about it, this was a 2008 law that was really passed against child traffickers. And what it says is that children, other than children coming from Mexico or Canada, are not to be deported. They need to go through the immigration courts and have a hearing to basically determine who they are, what they are, why they're here, and that kind of thing to try to protect these children. And yet, and so if you were a border patrolman, and this is the line, and you have a 10-year-old wanting to cross it, are you going to poke a gun in their stomach and tell them to go away? I don't know what we're going to do. It's definitely something that has to be addressed, but to say that we've just got to deport them all immediately, we passed a law in 2008 that said we can't deport them immediately. So it's really a crazy situation. And that was George Bush who signed that law. Yes, sir. Loudly.
All right. January this year, the federal government issued a contract for contractors.
I saw that.
All right. They already, there's no surprise about it.
That's right.
They set up their contract. Transport and house undocumented children up to 50.
I get that, Bruce. I get that. The government knows this was going to happen. They basically encouraged it to happen. It's happened, but now what are we going to do, Mike? This, well, yeah. And this, as I said, was in November 2013, and it was at San Ysidro in California, not what's happening. You have to remember, we don't have pictures about what's really happening in Texas because they're not allowing reporters and photographers in.
Today I heard they're not even allowing the Texas representative, elected representative in to the detention center.
That's right. Yeah, representatives are being denied. They are not. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy situation. And there's probably a lot more behind it than we understand. We already have 1,200 immigrants that have been put into Fort Lewis. You know, it's just, what are we going to do with this? It's pretty crazy. I don't know. So we have upcoming events. Want to go through these quickly. We have Rod Higgins, who is on our Spokane Valley City Council. Normally he'll be here, other than on Tuesdays he can't because that's when they meet. But he's a great guy, a good city council representative, and he is going to be talking about the Spokane Valley. And they are really setting an example for how to run a city government. So that is at the Ponderosa Women's Club on Thursday. Next upcoming event, pretty darn important. Just so you know, yesterday was the deadline for voter registration, address changes, and other updates that you do by mail, that kind of thing. July 18th, they're going to drop your ballots in the mail. And July 18th is also the last day to file for a write-in candidacy. So if any of you guys want to write in for something, you better get it done now. July 28th is the deadline for in-person new voter registration. So if you're new in the state of Washington, you need to register in person with elections by July 28th. And then, of course, August 5th is the primary. So, again, that's how that goes, and that's why you're not going to see a whole ton of electeds here tonight, because they're out doorbelling and doing everything in the world they can to really have people be aware of who they are, what they stand for, what they're doing, why you need to be voting for them. Our next month's movie night is August 12th, and one of the parts of the presentation is going to be put on by the 63rd Battalion of the Lightfoot Militia. You know, are militias illegal? Who are they and what do they do? I don't know a darn thing about militias. In fact, when I read the Washington State Constitution, I'm going, are they really even legal? And what I thought was very interesting at last month's meeting, how many of you were at last month's meeting? It was referred to by Josh Aratola at the next Friday Breakfast Club as a circus. And I figure every circus needs a clown, and that's what happened. But anyway, he informed me that Matt Shea was just absolutely terrible because he talks to militia people and associates with them. And so I said, well, I don't know a lot about militias, do you? And he said, no. And I said, well, our next meeting in August, I've asked them to come and tell us who they are and what they do and all that kind of stuff. Perhaps you would like to attend. And his comment to me was, I wouldn't be caught anywhere near those scumbags. So just so you know, you might not want to come to August 12th's meeting and be near the scumbags. I don't know. Pretty crazy. Another thing that's going to come up, and I found this out afterwards, it will be August 20th, is Trevor Loudon. How many of you have heard of Trevor Loudon? He is featured in the movie that we try to show it at least once a year, called Agenda, Grinding America Down, really showing you how this country has been changing so dramatically. He's from New Zealand, and he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a political activist. One of his quotes I loved was, ideal society is one which government is slashed to the bone and people are free to reach their own potential. Wouldn't that be nice? To him, socialism is a manifestation of mental illness or a major character deficiency. He's quite a character. I think you'll enjoy him. And we'll be doing a big event on August 20th featuring him. And I think this is going to be, he's on a book tour. Basically, the book he's written is about the enemy within. And I know it's going to be a very, very moving and inspirational and, oh my gosh, what are we going to do kind of meeting. And so maybe tonight we'll learn a little bit more about what we're going to be doing.
Where's he going to be?
I have not decided yet. I mean, I just found 2 hours ago that we had him on the 20th of August. So that will get formulated and we'll get you advertising materials, and let's really make it a big event. So we do open microphone at this time for announcements concerning issues, what's happening and that kind of thing. So I want to talk about a couple things before I turn the mic over. And one is about a letter to Al French that John Charleston is sending to him. And it's basically about government transparency. I don't know, how many of you go to the county commissioner's site to see what in the world's going on within the Spokane County? It's pretty darn hard to figure out anything the commissioners are doing. Wouldn't you agree, Vicki? I mean, they do post their agenda for the coming week, but you have no idea how they voted, what happened at previous meetings, what's been done. They don't archive things. It's pretty crazy. So, and Al French, as you know, is up for re-election. So the letter basically reads, government transparency seems to be a key phrase I hear a lot lately. I'm writing to ask you to require the following government transparencies to be provided immediately at our Spokane County website. The agenda, not just the upcoming, but also the archived agendas and minutes for all commissioner meetings. How does that sound? I mean, wouldn't it be nice to know what in the heck they're doing? Because who in the world can go to every meeting every time they have one? Audio, video archives, minutes, provide links to each agenda, the recordings of each meeting, both audio and video files, as were produced at the meeting. Voting, provide listings of every vote taken for any item, including roll call, listing the name of the voter, and when the vote is verbal. And please advise your position on this request as soon as possible, as it will become an election issue that will support or not support your re-election. Vicki.
John, are you putting that in as a public records request or just a request?
Oh, it's a request from the people.
You might want to, have you sent it yet?
No.
You might want to send it as a public records request.
And why is that?
Because then they have to answer it.
A public records request has to be answered, so that's good to know. Thank you, Vicki. We need your guys' guidance. Well, we don't want to request the documents. We want to be able to go to a website and click on it and know what in the heck's going on. Why should you have to dig and ask and beg and maybe they'll,
This seems like a really good time and a good opportunity to cause them to do something, because otherwise it'll just go into the mill. We've talked about this before. I've talked about it with, I can't think their name. Is it Gail? I think that's the commissioner's secretary. And it's always the same thing. It's a delay tactic. So we don't want to delay anymore. We want it transparent. We want it on their website. So, but asking...
It won't go on their website without it being a public records request for all of the documents. And then also put in there that you want it on the website.
Great.
Okay.
So we'll get with
we'll
Vicki and...
As public information.
Yeah,
right.
We'll do that.
Public records request is very different than a request for action.
Yes.
If you put in a request for action, you're not requesting public records, so that really doesn't play here. So
Yeah, it does if you put it in as a public records request.
you can only request the documents that have already been previously published. We can't request that they go out and publish something for you to put on the
That's not
website.
what I'm saying.
That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Two separate requests.
It's two separate requests.
Matt, I'll get with you.
Well, get with both of you. So anyway, it's an idea. We really do need to know what the county commissioners are doing, and it's really difficult to find out, I think, is what the deal is. Okay, another announcement on July 18th. And I believe it's July 18th, 19th, and 20th. 2 days? Anyway, again, if you go to SpokaneTeaPartyPatriots.com, you'll see that there's an announcement where nationally there are going to be protests against the immigration situation, basically flag waving, sign waving from overpasses. And so that, again, you can learn more at the website and, really see if you can rally around that. And I was hoping Mike Fagan or Jack Fagan would be here this evening to tell us about the 1325, how the signatures ended up. Has anybody heard?
Yes. We don't have.
We don't have enough signatures? That's too bad. Too bad. So are there any other announcements concerning issues locally, all that kind of stuff? Julian. And John actually requested that Julian make this announcement because we've both found that what Julian's doing has great value.
Okay. Hi, so my name's Julian Hale, and some of you know me, and some of you don't. I've been on the executive board of the Spokane County Party for the last 3.5 years. And sometimes it can be really tough on that board, and just dealing with the various groups. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of times we don't get along very well. And what winds up happening is nothing gets done. We get just absolutely nothing done, and we get creamed in the 3rd district. And the 6th district is up for grabs. We could lose there too if we don't do something. And so I took a personal development course back in December called the Landmark Forum. And when I was there, I was sitting there that first day, and they're talking about something, and he was talking about they call it a persistent complaint. It's just the same complaint over and over and over again, and a lot of it's the response that we have to that. But I was sitting there, and I just went, wow, that right there is exactly why the Republican Party and the conservative movement in general is the way that it is. And if we could just get enough people to go through through the Landmark Forum and understand it from this perspective, we could have an amazing shift in the way that we can all work together. And we're not going to see eye to eye on everything, obviously, but everybody will say. In fact, somebody was saying it to me just tonight. Well, all we need to do is work together on the things that we want to work together on, right? Everybody basically knows that, right? But is that what's happening? Here and there, a little bit, but by and large, no, that's not what's happening. We're not working together. We know what we need to do, and yet somehow we're not actually able to make that happen. So I personally see the Landmark Forum as something that can get us there. And I actually I've got an introduction to the Landmark Forum happening tomorrow night out in Liberty Lake. Don't go any further. Don't go any. And I've got some little announcements here, time, date, all that kind of thing. If you're interested, you want to come take a look and see if you see something for yourself. I think that'd be great. I'd love to have you out there. And I can hand these out when I'm done. And I also just wanted to say that as a member of the county GOP executive board, I think we should make that a joint request from the party, the Republican Party and the Tea Party, just to have more transparency from the the legislative / executive branch of our county government. I think it would probably carry more weight that way.
We could get that done.
I think we could. Yeah, before the primary. Yeah, I don't know about that. We might have to dovetail on that. Things happen slowly in the Republican Party.
You have a question in the.
You have a question.
You have a list of all the leaders' names, all the different groups in the area.
Do I have a list? More or less. Yeah, I mostly know who all the people are. Yeah.
Are you sending out an invitation to all the groups to try to create some cohesiveness?
I've been talking to people individually. Sending out broadcasts to people just doesn't seem to. I haven't figured out a way to put all this in an email and send it to somebody, and they read it and they go, "Wow, that sounds great. I want to do that." Maybe there is a way to do that, but I haven't figured out what that is yet. So it winds up being, this. Here I'm talking to a bunch of people, but generally speaking, I wind up talking to people one-on-one to try to make this happen. Tim.
So you're talking about issue-oriented voters. You're talking about getting people that are interested in politics, talking about issues, and creating basically a subculture of what we have right now in politics, where people that wouldn't normally work together will because they agree on certain issues.
Right. Well, I wouldn't really call it a subculture. It gives people the tools to overlook. How would I put this? It gives people the tools to not react to things the way they would have before. So, has anybody ever?
Yeah, if I could interrupt.
Somebody says something and you react to it, and you wonder later, why did I react that way? The Landmark Forum can help you figure that out and stop it in its tracks. With practice, stop it in its tracks before it ever happens. And so if we don't just instantly react to something somebody says, we can sit back, take a breath, and figure out how to work together. It'll help people figure out how to work together. All these people want to work together, by and large, right? Or I should say they want to get things done, and they'll work with whoever it takes to make those things happen, but they just don't quite have the tools to come together on, when the personalities get involved. Just real quick, John had something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what Julian is doing, not to put words in Julian's mouth, but he's hosting an introduction to this. It's a couple hours long. It's a great work. Cecily and I did the whole work back in 98, 99. Wound up spending 2 or 3 years in that environment, and it changed us because it really helped us just to become open to listening and not ready to cut somebody's head off, which was my typical personality. Most of us, I think, that I know that are in our frame of mind and our movement are really willing just to dig the hole and hope that a virus pushes them in. There's other solutions. And that starts by listening. It just starts by listening and not being attached to whether you're right or wrong. Just listen to where they're at, and then you can find out what's going on. That's what's happening for Julian. I'll tell you what I've seen with him. It's amazing.
Well, thanks. And so, I'd be happy to talk to any of you about anything. As far as what goes on in the Landmark Forum, what I got out of it, all that type of thing. I don't want to take up all your time with that right now, but I would like to hand these out to anybody that's interested in it. So there is an introduction tomorrow evening out in Liberty Lake at 5:30 at the Liberty Lake Portal, which is out on Mission, and I can't remember the cross street off the top of my head, but Moulter and Mission, yeah, that's it. And actually, one other thing I wanted to mention is I think the Landmark Forum could really make a difference for people who are running for office, our candidates. One of the things that we really need, one of the things we're lacking right now, is good people to run for office. And it's not that we don't have good people, but they're not running for office, generally speaking. A lot of people just feel like I'm guessing here, but I think a lot of people feel like they can't. For one reason or another, they just feel like they can't. This will help you get around and past whatever it is that you're telling yourself that makes you think that you can't do it. Henry Ford very famously said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Thanks, Julian. Oops.
Would anybody like
How many of you receive emails from MoveOn.org? They're really funny. And I do just because I want to hear what's being said to the other groups, right? So this last one, there was a generation of human beings who saw in a few months span the climate utterly transform. Whole civilizations collapsed. But there was nothing that generation, our ancestor, 12,000 years ago, could do to stop that climate catastrophe from taking place. Today, we are starting down our own climate tipping point moment. The key difference, we know exactly what to do to stop it. You go down a little bit more. But there's a group of people standing in the way. Our old adversaries, Charles and David Koch. They're bankrolling a state-by-state campaign to shred clean energy standards, attempting to gut Obama's new carbon pollution rules, and pouring a fortune into putting the U.S. Senate into the hands of climate deniers. If the Koch brothers succeed, we'll be locked into a fossil fuel economy. A global climate treaty could be destroyed, and we'll stay on the road to handing our kids an ice age level climate shift that we saw coming and could have prevented. So this is the kind, and then they ask for $3, and I think that's the coolest thing. They always just ask for $3, and they collect a lot of money with this kind of thing. They have a whole film out on the Koch brothers, which, if we don't have other issues coming up one night, we'll show it to you, and you're just going, oh my gosh, you know. And what I really think is interesting is the Steyer gentleman from California, who is putting a lot of money into campaigns to defeat conservatives and Republicans, basically earned his money, and he's all about climate change and we've got to quit this and all this. He earned his money in the fossil fuel business. You're just going, this is just nut job. But so anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Are there any other local, not candidates, but local issues that anybody wants to bring up that I've missed? Okay. We will move on. I did tell the candidates they had a short time to address us. Vicki was unable to be here at our last meeting, and so she was elected to the county assessor office last election in 2010. She defeated Ralph Baker. She's done a great job. They handle a heck of a lot of work with a small staff, and I think do a good job. And they are quite transparent on their website. So Vicki, would you come up and just give us a few words? And she's back in this area when meeting's over if you want to talk with her.
Thank you so much. This is an awesome group. I've spoken in front of you before, and what I bring to the assessor's office is trust, communication, and equal appraisals. The part of that is our 62% is reduction in appeals because of our appraisal practices that we've implemented. Our permitting system is now online so that we can make sure that all of our permits are picked up, all the houses are picked up, everything like that. I have plans for putting out with the fire station chiefs this next year for our destroyed property. Destroyed property takes a lot of fires, you know, in Spokane and things like that, where their homes are destroyed or partially destroyed. And we have a program where they can apply to have their taxes reduced for that year that they have destruction, or until they get it rebuilt. And so I want to make sure that our taxpayers are aware of that. Our senior citizens are doing very well. My opponent would like to have all of the appeals held with the assessor's office. This is against RCW, and it's also a little bit unethical, I think, to have the person who did your appraisal actually tell you whether it's right or not. So I don't think that's very right. He also says that I am not an appraiser. I'm not a certified appraiser. Well, what he doesn't understand is that the Department of Licensing and the Department of Revenue are two different licenses. The Department of Licensing is for real estate licensing for agents, not for ad valorem taxes, which we are. The Department of Revenue governs us, and they do certify us as appraisers. We have to keep a continuing education every 2 years to keep our certification, and I've had mine since 1995. So I've had almost 20 years of appraisal practice and experience. So, yes, experience. Lots and lots and lots of experience. One of the other things that I want to get involved with the county is I started when I first came in. They didn't have a disaster management plan for the county. And Rob and I were at the same meeting, and it was like, excuse me? You don't have a disaster management plan for the county? Well, they have since developed one. And with that, I come to the office with FEMA appraisal experience, working with FEMA, working with disaster appraisals, determining the percentage of loss on these properties. So if there is ever anything that occurs while I'm in office, I'm able to handle that. I don't believe my opponent is. So with that said, I would like to have your vote. We're for another 4 years of trust in the assessor's office. Okay? Thank you so much.
Right, and Vicki has yard signs here. And remember, it is a county position, so as long as you live in Spokane County, I'd like to see one of those Vicki Horton yard signs in your yard. Doug Orr had a previous appointment, and he was hoping he could be back in time, but he isn't, so he may be back at the end of the evening. He has materials over this way. He is running for county sheriff against Ozzie Knezevich. Rob Chase, treasurer. I probably could take up the rest of the evening talking about Rob Chase, so I won't. Rob, would you please come up and explain to us who you are and what you've done and why you definitely need to be re-elected?
Rob Chase is working.
It's me.
Rob Chase, I'm the current Spokane County treasurer, and I guess there's a few things. We issued a press release, but maybe because it's so close to election, we, it really wasn't printed by the newspapers. But, I've been all about tax reform for property taxes since I started. We've done a lot of good things, and probably everyone's heard the story several times, but, starting next year, you can make partial payments on property tax any amount, any time. And, that was one good thing. Something else I did in a new term, first term, was... we reduced the line, the wait time in line from probably about 50 people down to an average of less than 6 at any given time. But now to further that is the press release I was talking about. One problem we had is older people, they like to pay in cash and they want a receipt. And they come to an office, but it's hard for them to come to the treasurer's office in the hours we keep. They have to be there at the right time to see a cashier, and they have to pay parking, and some have disabilities. It's hard for them to get through security and up the stairs. But, starting this week, they can start paying by MoneyGram at Walmart anytime that they want. So they can pay in cash. It's a $4.50 fee, but that's less than, it takes to drive to the courthouse, find parking, and, get through security and get in there. So that's one innovation that I'm fairly proud of. And actually, by the end of this month, we also have a new software, and our people, we have employee-led teams, so we had a software team, and they came up with, it's called SIRE, and it's for real estate excise tax. And one of the complaints that we had was, when times got tough a few years ago, they started shutting down the courthouse, the assessor's office, the auditor's office, and the treasurer's office at 1 o'clock on Friday afternoons. And that's where a lot of the real estate work happens. People wait, and then finally everything happens on Friday, and they want to get to the keys to their new place, but they can't because we're closed. But now using the SIRE software, the title companies can be at their headquarters and do all the work, not just for the treasurer, but also get the recording done by the auditor too. So that'll be done by the end of this summer. And also, if you get a chance, watch the League of Women Voters Forum. It was really interesting. I was told I did a pretty good job. And actually, Elaine did a very good job too. I'm very proud of Elaine and how she held up and everything against a 16-year incumbent. Vicki Horton did a marvelous job. Her competition didn't even show up. So, I guess if you get a chance, do your civic duty and watch that, and you'll get to know us all better. And of course, any questions? Oh, by the way, I finally got my big signs in today, and one of my opponents has "Experience Matters" on her signs, and it sounds like she's the incumbent. Only incumbents put "Experience Matters" on her signs. But my deputy treasurer, Mike Volz, he's so brilliant. He said, he said, put on there real experience and proven results, So I think that tells a lot better story than just experience. So if anybody knows of any good places on a major highway to put my large yard sign, my large regular signs, my 4x8s, let me know, and because that would help my campaign a lot. I usually do all my own sign work, so if you know of a place like that, I'll lend you my pounder and everything, and buy you the stuff to put it in. So, because I'm out busy doorbelling too. So, also there's several doorbellers out there too, out in the audience. And Mary Cuney has developers, and I think Amy Biviano has Barberry. They're developers. It's nothing to them to make out a $950 check, but if you can doorbell a precinct, that's, I think, the equivalent of a $950 check realistically, too. So thank you, doorbellers. If you're interested in doing that, it's good exercise in a hot summer evening to go out there and doorbell, so let me know if you'd be willing to do that for me. And thank you, too, Virginia. You're out there doorbelling for me, too.
Thanks, And you get a chance. When you're doorbelling your precinct, you get a chance to meet your neighbors. It's really a pretty cool thing to do. Let's see who else is here. Tim Benn, 3rd District. Tim is just a character. The 3rd District is one tough district, and I swear to you guys, he is going to win one of these days. I know he is. This is it.
I think the day is in November. So, running against a machine. I'm not running against a man. As the book of Ephesians points out, our war is not against flesh and blood. It's not the battle. It's against powers, principalities, and evil in this world. And I'm running against tax increases and a $15 hour minimum wage. But I think it's a bigger picture. It's not just what happens next week or with our taxes. It's what happens to our children. Because it's our job to protect the future of our ideals so that they can enjoy the freedoms that we have. So that's why I'm running for office. I also wanted to say a word for Aline really quickly so we can get to this important presentation, who is running for auditor and would like your support. She's going to be at my event on July 29th. Because I'm running in the city of Spokane, and that would encompass the county where Aline is running, I am holding a SWOT analysis for the city. Rather than just represent a party, many of you know I'm running as an independent Republican because I believe in family values and fiscal responsibility, but the job of a representative is to represent the people in that area. So I'm in the city. We're going to do a SWOT analysis with past and present leaders in the city of Spokane. So if you want to know more about Spokane City proper, come to that event. We're going to have ice cream, and it's $20 to join.
And it's the 29th?
29th. I have flyers back on this table. It is at Knights of Columbus. So the invitation, the address, and all that information is on the back table when you leave.
And, we have... Rob just told you that he just got the large signs. Well, that's because we could just afford the large signs. Tim, again, it's tough. If you can't run these campaigns with some money, it's darn tough. So if you do have a checkbook and feel that way, I know those are 2 candidates that certainly can use your help. Okay, cool. Do we have any candidates I missed? Cool. All right. Perfect. So we want to know who We Believe We Vote is. Is it a national organization? Is it local? What is it? So we have Penny Lancaster here, and she is the director of We Believe We Vote, and has lived here in Spokane for a good long time. Both she and her husband are retired school teachers, and as I say there, she's the mother of 3 adult children. She is fortunate enough to winter in Yuma, Arizona, and is well educated. I also want you to know that she has paid her dues politically. She was a PCO, district leader. She is a present member of Ponderosa Republicans Women's Club and the Spokane College Women's Association. She puts a lot of time and effort into evaluating our local candidates to give us some guidance as to who they are and what they've sort of how they've represented themselves to We Believe We Vote. So it is an honor to have Penny with us tonight, and she's going to tell you a little bit about who they are, how they do their recommendations, and where you're going to be able to find them soon. Thank you, Penny. You're fine. I think.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you about We Believe We Vote, and I want to share some details about our purpose, our process, and our product. I want to ask you to keep track of some questions that you might have, and I'll address those at the end of my 20 to 30 minute presentation. 20-ish. Cecily gave a pretty good introduction, but I am a retired teacher, public school teacher, and unfortunately don't have any grandchildren right now. I experienced a life-changing love of Jesus about 35 years ago, and then over the last 25 years I have taken a public stand for life, moral decency, and family integrity against public policies and legislation that undermine the biblical principles and liberty involved in those issues. You might have seen some of my letters to the editor, signed some of my petitions, seen me make an appeal to the city council or to the library board. Over these 25 years, I have, and through those experiences, I have come to realize the critical importance of the character of our leaders, and what that character of our leaders will either bless or curse our city and our nation. And so now my goal is to encourage more conservatives and more Christians to vote their values and to elect more leaders who fear God and not man. We have a board this season of about 35 active Christian members who have a heart to see more righteous leadership. They come from many different backgrounds and denominations. We have people who are bankers, business people, home people that are retired educators, ministry, different from different backgrounds. And Carolyn Jacobs, I checked her name. She is our board chair and a close advisor to me. She's retired, married, and raising a daughter from China. And I just want to extend an invitation to you folks. If you're interested in participating in this worthy project next year, and you have 10 to 15 hours during the month of June and July, and you adhere to certain fundamental beliefs that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, and that His Word, that the Bible is His Word, and that covenant marriage between a man and a woman is vital to the welfare of our nation and to the next generation, then I'd like to talk to you after this presentation. So, our purpose. Our purpose is to use biblical and traditional values to make informed voter recommendations to the faith-based community, or the conservative community in Greater Spokane. We'd like to have influence in at least 3 areas. We'd like to influence the Christians and the conservative-minded people to participate in the election process, and perhaps even run for office, because once they realize there is a vast number of people who will vote, they might be more interested in running for office. I can't tell you how many times I have met people who did not vote because they didn't know who to vote for. So we want to have an influence in that area. We'd like to have an influence in the outcome of the election. According to Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. And so typically, in a midterm election, is often decided by 15% of the electorate. So I think we have a good chance to influence the election if we can get more people to vote, and more people will if they know who to vote for. We also want to influence the candidates. We want them to consider our perspective on the issues as they consider the questions that we ask them, and they think about their answers. we want them to start thinking about our perspective. And at the bottom of their questionnaire are links to articles on the internet that explain the issue from our perspective. So we encourage them to go to those links and to become more informed about things from different perspective. A good example of that, a couple of years ago I interviewed a fairly liberal candidate, and one of the questions on our questionnaire had to do with stem cell therapy. And he was surprised that adult stem cells were effective and not controversial. He thought the only stem cell therapy that even worked were embryonic stem cells. So he was surprised to hear about that, and he promised to check it out on one of those links that we provided for him. Another example is many candidates are not familiar with the Agenda 21 issue, and they don't understand how that has influenced policy decisions even in our own city of Spokane. And so when we ask them questions about that, then they want to know more, and they go to our links, and so we're trying to have an influence there too. So the process, what is the process? The first thing we do is invite the candidates, there's about 50 in this current election, to meet with us. We invite the candidates from contested offices to come and meet with us and have a face-to-face interview. We have teams of 2 or maybe 3 that meet with them, and this team will interview all the candidates for the same office. That way they have more of their evaluations are more objective because they've interviewed all the candidates for the same office. We have a set of questions, survey questions that we ask them. These questions are intended to get at their worldview, to discover what their values are, what their character is. These questions are customized according to the different office that they will be that they're running for. And this is just a sample of the questions. All of the questions for the different types of offices that are up for election will be posted on our website next week. We're still in the interview process, so by Wednesday, I believe, we will have these posted up there. We evaluate the candidates' answers by using a criteria that is based on a biblical standard and a view towards the intentions of our founders and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We have a page on our website right now that defines our criteria for a 5-star recommendation. So this is just the first page, but you can see that we're looking at whether they respect the United States Constitution, human life and convictions, whether they respect our priority of marriage and family over the state, and personal responsibility and opportunity. And so we define each of those and have links to or references to verses and Founding Father quotes. So about the middle of July, in fact next Tuesday, the whole coalition meets back together after the interviews are done and the evaluation of the candidates' answers are complete. We come together as a coalition and we examine the candidates' views on life, family, purpose of government, and from a traditional conservative perspective or worldview. We post our evaluation of each candidate that we interview, and even some of those that wouldn't interview with us, we still look at their record, and we post our evaluation of them on our website under Candidate Evaluation page. We list the positive statements, the things that we liked about the candidate, and the things that we had concerns about the candidate. We encourage voters to go to that page and read what the candidate, where the candidate stands on different issues, and make up their own mind, or look at our at our recommendations and just use our recommendations. I was pleased this year that a candidate who had not been willing to interview with us in the past was willing to interview with us this time, because she felt that our candidate evaluation page was fair. And we do not endorse candidates. We make recommendations. This is an example of our last year's primary election voter recommendation. This year's will be decided this Tuesday and should be posted on our website hopefully by Wednesday. But this is an example. You can see some candidates for the same office got 5 stars. For Senate District 7, we thought each of those candidates were well qualified, but maybe for different reasons. And this is a time where it would be appropriate for people, especially, to go to our candidate evaluation page and compare and contrast the candidates and see which one you like. Now, the general election voter recommendation just has a list of the better candidate that survived the primary. So there's just a list on the general election. It is true that candidates who do better in our evaluation process between a Democrat and a Republican happen to be Republican. We're not committed to that party particularly and could endorse a Democrat, an independent, or a constitutionalist, or a libertarian if they aligned with our traditional conservative and Christian worldview, among other criteria. For instance, a few years ago, we did endorse Skip Chilberg in the primary election, and then Rob Chase had a write-in ballot, and he survived that write-in, and so we endorsed him for the general election. But that would be an example of somebody that met our criteria even though they were a Democrat. We encourage people to go to our website and read about the different platforms, compare the platforms. And I really like this article that the Christian Coalition of Washington wrote, comparing the difference between the Republican and the Democrat platforms. I think that's educational, and I encourage people to check that out. So now we've had the interview, we've had the evaluation process, we've made our recommendations, we've posted our voter recommendation on the website, and now we want to promote it far and wide. And we're asking pastors to put this notice, this comment in their bulletin, at least. There are a number of things that they can do. On our website, we have a special page just for pastors. So pastors can and should encourage people to use our website as a resource. We're not asking them to promote the voter recommendation. We're asking them to promote the website as a voter resource so we can get the word out. There are a lot of other ways that we get the word out. Through Facebook, through radio, through community news, through email. We have at least 2,000 people on our email list, and when they get the email, they spread it far and wide. So you can help. Go to our website, download our voter recommendation, and pass it out to friends and family. Sign up on our mailing list, even tonight. Sign up, and then when I post the voter recommendation, it will go out on Wednesday. You'll get it in your email box. You forward it to your contacts. That's how this will grow. We encourage people to go to our Facebook and like us on the Facebook. Come back and check when we have different things that we post, make comments, and then share those comments. You know how it works. We've got to get the word out. And you notice there's a donate button there. We are all volunteers. Nobody is getting paid on our committee. We are trying to get the information about our website and about our voter recommendation to many people. We are a political action committee registered with the Public Disclosure Commission. We can accept up to $500 donation per person without revealing names. Everyone on our board are volunteers, and the money goes to promote the website. I want to make sure I've got all this information. This is another thing. Once we publish our voter recommendation, those candidates are going to get a lot of exposure. They're going to be promoted far and wide. So I'm thinking that We Believe We Vote is a great one-stop shopping for political purposes. I don't want to take a dime away from a candidate of your choice, but at the same time, if you support us, we can get the word out also. And we're working on extending our reach on that. Some final thoughts. Our recommendations are especially helpful in nonpartisan races and in the primary election when you've got 2 or 3 good candidates to choose from. We're the only organization that offers this kind of resource that I know of. We realize that people may not like every recommendation, but we have taken the time to meet with each candidate in contested offices and evaluated them with a conservative, biblical, traditional worldview. Many recommendations are for the better candidate, not necessarily the best candidate, because there may not be a best candidate. So keep that in mind. We do make recommendations. Sometimes it's just for the better candidate. And hopefully, as godly men and women realize that more conservatives are voting because they know who to vote for, or at least they know where to get information, we'll get a better quality of candidate. We'll get more conservatives running for office, just like Julian had said. So contact me, write down my telephone number, my email address, write us a check, donate online. And I have these cards. I'd like you to take a number of these cards to pass out to your pastor, to your church, to your friends, to leave them in bathrooms and anywhere. We just want it. This is another way to get the website information out. So take a bunch of those. This is a little poster that we encourage pastors to put on their bulletin board or to put in a window of your car. Just spread these all over town. So those are some things to do. Are there any questions? Yes. Thank you. This is the 5th year, our 5th season. Every year we are maturing, growing, learning, and so I do appreciate any feedback that you have that will help us do a better job. Rob.
How large is your subscriber list?
We have over 2,000 people on our constant contact email list. So I guess you'd call that a subscriber list. We have, I think, 380 people who have liked our Facebook page, and hopefully that will grow by this many people tonight. And so that's growing too. This is the 2nd year we've been on Facebook, so learning a lot about that. Other thoughts or ideas? Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Penny, why don't you sort of walk around with your cards and flyers, and people will take what they want there. That'd be great. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. So that gives you a better understanding when you look at those recommendations of the process that's used. So that will help you. John? I think you need to flip. Got to get on the right presentation here. Okay. Okay, I sort of challenged you all with the email that we sent out of, do you want to learn how to be an effective grassroots activist? I think we all recognize that we want to do something, and yet what is it that we do, and how can we see that our efforts are more effective? Because, darn it, we want our candidates to win. So I was introduced to Richard Burke a while back, and checked out the website of the Western Liberty Network and talked to him some. And I did ask him to come early and really meet with our candidates and their campaign managers and things to really get a feel for Spokane and what we have going on here. Because, you know, I'm sure every community is different, and we all have different issues and different things happening, but there are some proven methods of really working a campaign and having it win, having it work. Now, I recognize that our primary is pretty darn close. I mean, ballots drop in 10 days. Our candidates don't have a whole lot more time. So what I'm hoping he'll do this evening is help those of you who haven't figured out what to do to help some of our candidates as to going up to them and saying, hey, you know, I want to give you a hand doing X, Y, Z. And then also give us thoughts for in the future as to other things that we can be doing to just be more effective in impacting our elections here. I think you all know that I really believe that the way that you really change is locally. We have got to work locally on our local level and our state level. I think the national level is pretty well toast. And so put your efforts where they'll count, and that's here where we live. Richard has a very interesting story to tell you about his time with Americans for Prosperity, and some of the things that, some of these court rulings that we think are okay, how they really do impact things. So I'd like you to all welcome Richard. He and his wife Natasha came up here on their own dime from the Portland area, and want to share what he really stands for as far as what he's wanting to accomplish with the Western Liberty Network. So, Richard, thank you for coming, and looking forward to hearing what you have to teach us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, do you need a sound check? I guess, is this okay?
Good.
Behind the chair. You need me behind the chair. Okay, I will be behind the chair? In the area here. Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Richard Burke. I'm the Executive Director of Western Liberty Network. Now, I'm just going to start by voicing something that you are probably thinking or have probably thought, and that is, as a supporter of limited government, I am just bone tired of being on the defensive. How many people feel that way, that we've been on the defensive too long? I agree. I think it's time to go on the offensive. And let's take a look at some of the things we do. They're all valuable. We do initiative petitions to try and get a law passed that the legislature won't pass, or a referendum to try and stop a law that the legislature or a city government or county government has passed. These are defensive measures. They're important to do. I don't want to belittle them, but they are defensive measures because the other side is running things for the most part in this country right now. Going to court to get things overturned is a defensive measure. I say, let's let the other side be the ones taking the defensive measures. Let our side be the side that is on the offensive, that is passing the laws. Let the other side be the ones that try to overturn it or try to petition to get it done. And the way we do that is by getting people elected to office. And although it is important that we win the White House and Congress and the state legislature and so on, we will never be able to create enduring change. We will never be able to change the fabric of our political culture unless we dominate at the local level. And by we, I'm talking about limited government supporters, whether you be independents, Republicans, libertarians, or anything else. Now, when I was with Americans for Prosperity, which I think is a fine organization, they had policies. The policies were they could not even talk about elections. They couldn't deal with any elections. There are certain issues they couldn't discuss, like immigration, and the organizations that affiliated with them had to be subordinate and had to follow all of their policies. There were reasons for these, given their objectives. But what they did do, the good thing that they did, is they developed grassroots volunteers. They taught them skills. And my job with Americans for Prosperity was to build a network of organizations where grassroots activists could come and get actual useful training on how to be effective out in the field. And it was really good, and it really worked well. And in Oregon, where I worked, we had tremendous results, and what we were doing was being copied in other states, like Wisconsin, which later had all of the victories with Scott Walker, and other states were taking on this model. But what happened is, after the Citizens United case, and whether you agree with this case or don't agree with this case, what it did is it allowed big 501c3 and C4 organizations to get huge, unlimited, anonymous contributions, tax deductible from donors, and then spend it for legal purposes. And so they largely abandoned actually training the grassroots. They've pulled out of Oregon, they've pulled out of Washington, and they instead got these contributions and spent them on TV ads and hit pieces, which, given their particular goals, was logical. But it did leave a huge void. And that is why I founded Western Liberty Network, because I believe in training the grassroots. I believe that taking the offensive in America and changing our political culture involves winning at the grassroots level. I myself am an elected water commissioner. I'm board president of the Tualatin Valley Water District. I'm serving my 4th term. Before that, I did 2 terms on a local school committee in the Beaverton School District. I understand how valuable this is and how attainable this is. If you think you can't win in Congress, if you think you can't win the White House, you can win here in town. There are thousands and thousands of local elected positions, and many of them are vacant to this day. There are thousands more vacant appointed positions. So, what I decided to do was form Western Liberty Network, and the idea would be to create pools of talent so that we would have more people that would be candidates for appointed and elected office. You know, folks like you. And those who did not want to be candidates, train them how to be campaign managers. And for those who didn't want to be campaign managers, train them how to be, good foot soldiers, efficiently using their time when they volunteer for the various campaigns they care about. And the 4th track we care about is for people who do get elected to local office. How to function once you're there. How board staff governance works. How Robert's Rules of Order works. How not to violate ethics laws. And the idea is to build pools of talent that can be run up the pipeline. The left is excellent at this. They do this all the time. The right does not do this. How many times... I think one gentleman today said, we're having trouble finding people to run for office. It's because conservatives don't do it by nature. We're into our businesses. We're into our families. We have to make a volitional choice to run for a local office. Liberals, they love government. They think it's a source of good. So for them, it's fun. You see, so we have to work hard at it. The good news is we can take over in this way. And once we do, even though we've got that disadvantage about what's fun and what's not fun, we'll win in the end because our ideas are better. Now, Western Liberty Network is a 501c3. It's a private, nonprofit, tax-exempt, and all of that sort of thing. So we do not get involved with any campaign. We don't say vote for this person or that person, vote for this legislation or that legislation. We cannot do that. What we do instead is we affiliate organizations like this one to reach activists and offer you training. What you do with the training then is up to you. We like to encourage people to tap people and run folks for local office. Because if like 6 or 7 people who are in this group right now run for office, some of you might be campaign managers, the rest of you might help. When you win these races, and you would win some of these races, the victory doesn't belong to an organization in D.C. It doesn't belong to an organization in Olympia. It belongs to you. You're the ones that get there. And when you elect people, you become more politically relevant, which means you get better speakers. It's easier to recruit. It's easier to get press coverage. And that, of course, feeds in for the next cycle, and it goes round and round. And since you guys got the folks elected to local office, if they backslide, you're the ones that hold them accountable. It provides a direction that allows us to not only win for today, but win for all time, to have enduring change, something that'll stick by building from below. And so that is what Western Liberty Network is for. And so we now have, it says in the paper that I've handed out, I handed out a paper that kind of explains it in this organization. It says 16 organizations affiliated. We now have 19, and we have state directors working as volunteers right now in Hawaii, Virginia, and California, and Idaho, as well as Oregon and soon to be Washington. So that, I don't want to go on too much about Western Liberty Network, but I promised Cecily I'd tell a story about how I came to this, and that's what I want to do. By the way, Cecily and John, I've been talking to folks all over the state. They have excellent reputations, and so you're very lucky to have the leaders that you have in Cecily and John. I also am very lucky to have that woman right over there as my wife, Natasha, who gave up all kinds of comforts in Russia to marry me 5 years ago. We've known each other for 7 years. We'll be married 5 years in December. She's a great supporter. I love you, and thank you for all of your support. So what we do is we train people how to be grassroots activists, and Cecily said that she wanted me to go over some things that were relevant that could be used in the 3 weeks or so that you have left before the primary election. And so I'm kind of shoehorning this into a limited amount of time, but I thought the most applicable training unit would be this one here: how to campaign effectively with very little or no money. And so some of these things, what this is a non-exhaustive list of tactics you might use. Some of them might be elementary to you. Maybe you haven't heard of them all before, but I go through this document, which I'll do shortly, and sort of tweak how you might execute on some of these things in the weeks that you have left to have impact on some of the campaigns that you care about. How many people here plan to do some kind of volunteer work for somebody's campaign in the 3 weeks that are left in the primary? Okay, most of the people here, probably 3/4 or 80% of the people here. Well, that's good. So I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to dive right in and point out that in these local races, letters to the editor are still extremely effective. How many people here have written a letter to the editor before? Okay. How many have written one that has not gotten published? Just about everybody, okay? And so that's good that you have the habit of writing that. That's good. A lot of these community newspapers are subscribed by people who still read newspapers, and they tend to be older folks, and the advantage of that is that they vote in very high numbers. So when you get published as a letter to the editor, you're probably going to get read by a lot of people. Now, when you write a letter to the editor, there are some reasons why a lot of them end up on the scrap room floor. Sometimes it's because you tell too much story. Sometimes you don't get to the point, not you specifically, but people don't get to the point quickly enough. Sometimes they call someone a name or say something that can't be verified. So if you want to write a politically effective letter to the editor, this is what I recommend you do. The first thing you do is begin your letter like this: Dear Editor, I write this letter in support of Jane Doe for county assessor, or whatever the position is. Just first sentence out of the gate, bang. This is why I'm writing you. Say what it is. Most folks, when they read a newspaper article, don't read past the first sentence anyway, or much less the first paragraph. So tell them what you want right at the top. The second thing you say in your letter to the editor is why. And it's good if you can do a personal story. It doesn't matter if it's politically relevant or not. If it makes them like the candidate, it's very helpful, okay? It's interesting how elections work. There are facts and there are emotions, and you know, I know that when you sell a product, people say, yeah, the blue one has better mileage, it's a little better value and got 5 stars, but I like the red one, right? People vote the same way. Isn't that scary? You know, so you can say, I want the black one. So dear editor, I write this letter, you know, to ask your readers to vote for Jane Doe. Jane Doe is a very personable, kind, competent person who will serve us well in the office of county assessor. And then for the third statement, put down who you are that they should listen to you. Okay? Saying who you are is fine, but who you are that others should listen to you is helpful. You can say, I am a member of the local PTA. I am a member of the local Kiwanis Club. I'm a member of, the Spokane Tea Party Patriots, whatever it is. And then repeat by saying what you want them to do. It's a clunky, short, 1 or 2 paragraph letter to the editor, but it's politically impactful, and it gives the editor fewer reasons to put it on the cutting room floor. 1, it doesn't take too much space. Long letters to the editor end up on the cutting room floor. They don't have time to to polish it up. They don't want you to polish it up. So that objection is gone. The fact that you went on too much with a story or you made personal attacks or anything, that's not a factor. It's a very short article. And if you write letters to the editor that are like this, you might say to yourself, gosh, I want to say this and I want to say that. But if you don't and limit it to those 4 things, you're going to get published most of the time. And most importantly, identify yourself, who you are, how you can be contacted. If you have a title, like if you're a volunteer on a board or anything like that, put that down as your title, and you can get a letter to the editor published much more frequently than you could otherwise. Another one is testimony to public boards. Most public boards have a period of time called open communication, when you can talk about things that are not on the agenda to be discussed that day. You get 2 or 3 minutes. Have you folks seen this before? City council meetings, board meetings. And do you have public access television that covers some of your local meetings? This is a perfect way to campaign. If I go to my local city council during that 3-minute open communications, I can say, Your Honor, the mayor and members of the city council, I would like to use this 3 minutes to tell you that I and other community members are going to support Jane Doe for county assessor, and these are the reasons why. You can do that for 3 minutes. And if it's on public access television, it's like a commercial for that person. And if they ask you, well, why are you talking to us about this? This doesn't have to do with the city council. You simply say, well, this is open communication, time for items that are not on the agenda, and this is something that I think of as it's important to our community, and that's why I wanted to share it. And, if they shut you down, they're jerks, and they expose themselves as jerks, and they don't want to do that on TV, so you can't lose. You get a free ad for your campaign person, but also I've seen several other things happen as a president of a board. Sometimes there will be someone in the audience that you don't even know who likes what you say, and they may come up to you and say, something, I really liked what you said about Jane Doe. Do you know how I can get involved? It doesn't happen very often, but it does sometimes happen. Sometimes there's a newspaper reporter in the audience. And they'll say, it's kind of unusual. I've never seen anybody do a campaign speech at a city council meeting before. What made you do that? And you've got a chance now to interact with the media, and they might write a paragraph about it in their story. It might not happen. You never know. But the point is, it opens up doors. Plus, if nothing else, it gives you a chance to practice delivering public testimony, a skill that could be very, very impactful if an issue is before the city council that you support or you favor and you want to talk about it. So while you're campaigning for your candidate, you're also building your own skills as a grassroots activist, and maybe even skills that will help you if you decide to run for a local nonpartisan office in the future, which I encourage you to do. Another thing is lobbying local and legislative office holders. How many people here know somebody who serves in an elected or appointed public office now? Almost everybody, right? So another way you can campaign for little or no money is you can go to them and say, something, I really like Jane Doe for the county assessor's office. I would like you, as the president of the local park and rec district, to endorse Jane Doe, or issue a press release on your behalf saying that you endorse Jane Doe. Well, this offers many advantages. If they're willing to do it and get it in the paper, then that's going to be an opinion leader that is supporting the same candidate that you are. And if they decide they don't want to endorse it, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence on that one, you've just exposed somebody who might not be as good of a conservative or limited government activist as you think they are. You can start asking, well, why won't you come out for Jane Doe? And when they ask that question, you're going to learn more about that person if they refuse to do it. But if they do an endorsement, get it to the paper, put it on the website, have the candidate put it on their website. These are things you can do. And how much does it cost? It costs $0. How much does it cost to testify in front of your city council, water board, fire commission board? It costs $0. Letters to the editor, essentially, it costs $0. These are all things you can do in the next 3 weeks that will help your candidate that won't cost any money at all. Calling talk radio shows. Is there a local talk show here in town? Okay. All right. Get your troops together. Call them up. Now, when you call, you have to be very careful. There are a couple of things that you can do. Sometimes there is a Freedom Friday or something like that, where there is no restriction on what you can call in, just general conversation. And if you do, what you want to do is you want to be very short. Tell the producer that you want to talk in favor of Jane Doe for tax assessor. And when you get on the air, just say, yes, I wanted to call because I think Jane Doe is a great candidate for tax assessor, and I think that everybody should vote for Jane Doe. Now, if it's a hostile radio show, just say thank you and hang up, so that the host cannot engage you in a debate and start to cut down Jane Doe. Okay? If they start to do it later on in the show, you can get involved, but most of the time that won't happen. You get 3 or 4 Jane Doe calls in like that, then that's going to be like a commercial for Jane Doe. If it's a friendly talk show host, give a couple of reasons why, whatever the reasons are for you. Very similar to a letter to the editor. But the idea is, in radio, your job is not to inform the public. Your job is to make the host look good. And just like the hosts, they portray themselves oftentimes as being there to inform the public, provide a venue, and all of that. That's not why they're there. They're there to attract listenership, to make the radio station money. And they will poke you with a stick even if they agree with you, because people are attracted to confrontation. And so you have to bear that in mind, to be privy to that when you call into a talk radio show. So the idea is to get in, deliver the message, and get out before a talk show host can manipulate it too much. So if you call a friendly talk show host, say, yes, I'm calling to support Jane Doe for county assessor. I've known her for a couple of years, or I've been in the Optimist Club with her, and she's done a wonderful job, and I just think she'd serve us well. That's all I wanted to say. I'll take my response off the air. That's it. And then maybe the show will turn into a discussion about that race. But how much did it cost? It didn't cost anything. And even if you say that much to a hostile talk show host, they're not going to have a chance to cut you up. They'll have to say, well, I don't know why they hung up. I was going to talk about that for a while. Maybe somebody will want to call back. Well, that's, the campaign's going to be listening at that point. And at that point, the campaign, if they're on their toes, they're going to have somebody call, and they're going to be professionally trained and able to handle that discussion. Or if not professionally trained, at least by this time they've been around the lap a few times, so they know how to do this. But this is something you can do that costs absolutely nothing. Now, another one, this is my favorite, bulletin board campaigns. You've all seen in Walmart and Winco and all these kind of places a community bulletin board, right? Now, they don't like political things on their community bulletin board, but stick one up there anyway. Okay, they're going to take it down, but how many people are going to see it before it gets taken down, right? And just run those the first time I ran for local school committee, I ran these things everywhere. I just ran them up on the board. But there was something else that I did, a couple of things that I hadn't thought of before, and that is how to deal with apartment buildings. There are a lot of apartment buildings in Spokane, just like every other city, and they all have laundry rooms. And so go into the apartment buildings, and sometimes there are bulletin boards, sometimes they're not. Bring a roll of Scotch tape with you and a bunch of flyers and stick them right on the wall above each of the laundry machines. Or if there's a bulletin board, bring some tacks with you and stick them up on the bulletin board. I tell you, the maintenance people don't care. Now, if they catch you they may ask you to leave. But the leasing office salesperson is in the office most of the time unless she's showing an apartment. The maintenance people, they don't care. They're trying to fix the plumbing, right? They're not going to notice you most of the time. Just dress normally, nondescript, and have like a little folder so that you don't call attention to yourself, and just find the laundry rooms, go into the laundry rooms, and just stick them up everywhere. I'll tell you, after I did that, my first race, I went to the same apartment like 3 years later, and the sign was still there. But I know that everybody that did their laundry saw that sign. Okay, now this isn't free, but it's cheap. Just run off a bunch of flyers yourself, so that the campaign can deny that they knew anything about it, and just start running them up. And it's effective. It works really well. The pre-election day sign campaigns. This is where we talk about taking a sign and asking a business person to put it in their window, that kind of thing. Most of the time they won't do it. A lot of businesses, they don't like to be political, even if you're trying to save them. They're afraid that they'll lose this customer or that customer. And sometimes they do lose these customers. But once in a while, you're going to get a business owner that says, okay, go ahead and stick it in the window. Or you'll get an employee that doesn't care, that doesn't know anything about it. And they'll say, sure, stick it in the window. And stick it in the window and just get the signs out and go for there and go for that. And then, of course, the election day sign campaign. I'm sure that you've always seen at heavily traveled intersections, people holding up signs, waving, say hello. This is always very effective. Now, this isn't free because you've got to get the signs made. But it's not expensive, and I don't need to go into detail about this because there's nothing scientific about it. Just find a good intersection and find some friends and set up some times and just be there at critical times when there's high traffic. One other thing, I'm going to go back to bulletin boards for just a second. This is a good thing to do for people who do not like to be in the limelight. Some of the things I've already discussed, like testifying before public boards or writing a letter to the editor or lobbying office holders, they involve a lot of personal communication or getting yourself on the radio, and not everybody is comfortable with that. But the bulletin board campaign is a nice way for people who are maybe a little more introverted to do something that is incredibly impactful. And so that's something to point out about that. Now, door-to-door campaigns. How many people have knocked on doors before for their candidate? Excellent. You guys are awesome. I usually get like half that many hands by a percentage. But what you want to do when you're doing door-to-door campaigns, and some of you probably already know this, is don't get into any discussions because your job is to cover territory. You don't want to alienate anybody, but you want to move along. You don't want to get caught up in debates. You don't want to argue. And what I find works the best is, knock, knock. Hello, sir. My name is Richard Burke. I'm campaigning for Jane Doe. I've got this information here for you. I've got to cover a lot of territory today, but I wanted to make sure you had this. So thank you very much. I'll let you get on with your day. Thank you very much. Boom! Out the door. Don't walk across the grass. Sometimes people walk across the grass for a shortcut, and that alienates people, especially if they really care about their grass. You don't want to step on any of their plants, right? And you want to be careful that you don't bump into their car if you walk between the two cars in the driveway. Just remember that this is their property. Treat their property the way you would want folks to treat your property, and just knock on the door. If they seem unpleasant, well, just thank them, smile, no matter what they do, just thank them. But you see, taking that approach, the one that I just demonstrated to you, really doesn't give even someone who's on the other side of the line too much to be offended at, because you're just taking a couple of their minutes and you're not engaging them in a sort of an argument, and you're getting out of their face very quickly. But this way you can cover a lot of doors, you can create big presence for your candidate, and you're going to cover a lot of territory. It's really tempting, especially people who like to do door-to-door, to get into a discussion. Oh, I like your hydrangeas out there. This is beautiful. Or what a lovely dog you have. And pretty soon you get into a conversation. Do you know this person? Oh, yeah. Do they go to school with so-and-so? Oh, yeah. He knows her daughter. And, these are wonderful wonderful discussions, and they build the fabric of a community, but they're killers when you're doing door knocking campaign. Just try not to get sucked into those kinds of things and just say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm, canvassing the area for Jane Doe, running for tax assessor. She's a great person. I hope you'll vote for her. And I wanted to hand you this. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. I'll let you get on with your day. That's it. You'll just cover tons of ground, and you will be gold to the candidate that you're working for. Phone banking, same thing. Usually if you volunteer for a phone bank, the candidate, their campaign is going to have a script for you to follow. And my recommendation is just follow it, because their campaign manager has done a good job of working out what will be effective in your community. But if you don't get a phone bank, just do the same thing. Just say, hello, yes, I'm calling on behalf of the Jane Doe campaign. I've known Jane Doe for a number of years. She's a really good person, and I hope you'll vote for her when the ballot arrives in your mailbox next week. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. It's hard to be offended by that. Don't get sucked into a debate. You can cover a lot of territory. It's interesting. It doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And if you're efficient, if you do this stuff well, and you're fast in the manner that I've been describing to you, it will not suck as many of the hours out of your life as it can when you volunteer inefficiently. Your time is valuable. You can you could be with your family, you could be building your business, you could be out mowing the grass, whatever it is that you like to do, and you're giving up some of your precious time to support somebody for office. Wouldn't it be great if you knew that you were getting 80 miles to the gallon instead of 20 miles to the gallon? That makes it easier to be just as effective as somebody that's putting in 4 times as many hours. Desktop activism. How many people have a Facebook account? Right? How many people have a Twitter account? Not so many. That's okay. How many people are a member of an email list for something that has nothing to do with politics? Like I'm on an email list, for astronomy, for example. Okay? And of course, I know that we all probably get emails about politics all the time. But we do have special units at Western Liberty Network on how to be effective in Facebook and Twitter. However, for folks who are not expert and who do not have time to learn, such as the case as is now when you only have 3 weeks before the primary, this is what you do. You get on your Facebook tonight and you go up to where you put a status, and it says, what are you doing right now, or what is your status? Write down, I'm thinking of the great reasons why I'm voting for Jane Doe for county assessor. Right? Put down 3 reasons and then maybe type in the website link, and bing! Pretty soon all of your friends are going to have that message. And if they agree with you, they might share it and it might go out to others. But even if it doesn't, I don't know how many friends you might have. I've got, because I use it professionally, there are people that I don't even know. But if I hit think, I've got a couple of thousand Facebooks out there. If you have 30 friends, there you go. This is very, very good. If you're a member of an email list, you can get away with this sometimes if it's an unmoderated list. But you can say, I'm not going to make a habit of this, but I wanted to put a plug in for Jane Doe for county assessor. Has nothing to do with astronomy, but I want everyone to know that she is really good. Or you could try to make a joke out of it, saying, I'm putting it on this list because she is out of this world, or try to be clever like that, a little bit disarming. But, it's good to put, I'm not going to make a habit of this on front, because people will get annoyed if you put unrelated messages on the email list. But if you put something like that up, it's going to let them know that this is kind of a one-time deal, but you'll still be able to access it. You'll still be able to access them and give them a good word about Jane Doe. Twitter, I'm not going to talk about that now because not very many people here are using Twitter, but that's something that I think will be gone in 5 years, but it'll be around for the next couple election cycles, so it's probably worth learning. Does anybody remember MySpace? Yeah. It's dead now. It's gone. I think it still technically exists, but Facebook blew it away. My guess is something's going to blow Facebook away and something's going to blow Twitter away. But you got to use what you have, and that's what we have right now. Now, by the way, if anyone has questions, during all of this. I should have said this at the start. Please interrupt me. Raise your hand, and I'd be happy to engage with you. Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about supporting one candidate. Usually when I go precinct voting, I might be supporting about 8 candidates.
Okay.
What do you think about supporting several candidates as opposed to one?
Well, the question is, I talk about how to support one candidate. This woman supports several candidates when she does a precinct walk. What do I think about that? Well, that's a little bit harder because most political campaigns and consultants will tell you that when you go out there with a message, if you have one message, that's what will be heard. If you start to break it up with multiple messages, then people are going to be less likely to remember any of the messages that you push. But in this case, I think what I would do is I would present it as a package. I would say, hello, my name is Richard Burke, and I'm campaigning for some candidates that I think would be really good for our community. I have their information here, and I would like to give this to you. These are their names, John Doe, Jane Doe, whatever they are, and I just want to hand you these, and I hope you'll get a chance to look at them and consider voting for them. Thank you very much. It's a little bit harder, but you can do it that way. And generally speaking, even if you don't mention their individual names, when they're staggering from their door, you're walking away and they're kind of walking back into their house, they'll generally flip through it. Oh, this one, that one, this one, that one. And they'll at least see the packages. I've always thought that doing multiple candidate walks is a way to make all of the candidates happy. And political parties often do that because they don't want to show favoritism to any one candidate, so they include other ones too. Otherwise, you got a candidate saying, well, they're carrying my piece, why aren't you, or they're carrying their piece, why aren't you carrying my piece? So doing a multiple candidate literature drop is oftentimes a political decision as much as a strategic one. I always recommend that candidates do one candidate drops, and maybe they come up with an arrangement. If you've got 5 candidates, you do 5 drops, and everybody agrees to drop everybody's pieces. Because if you have one message, it's going to be transmitted clearly. If you try to transmit multiple messages at the same time, a lot of it's going to get lost. And they'll just remember that, oh, somebody came to my door and gave me a bunch of literature. And if you ask them who the people were, they may not be able to remember. If you have one candidate, they're going to be a lot more likely to remember. So I would caution against doing multiple candidate drops. I know it's a reality of politics, but I would consider talking to the candidates you're working for and asking about a way to make sure that everybody has some individual time in the limelight. I'm going to continue. Yes, ma'am.
Along that line, I am a precinct officer.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a precinct officer.
Yes.
And I'd like to go out and recommend that they vote for XYZ people.
Yes.
And is there any problem? I can't go around half a dozen times.
Yeah, I know it's an opportunity cost, and I'm not saying that you can't do that. I'm just saying that the more candidates that you're pushing at one time decreases the likelihood that the voter you're talking to will remember any of them. It's like if I'm trying to sell you, let's say I'm trying to sell you toothpaste, and I've got Colgate, Aquafresh, Close Up, and all these others. I'm less likely, Colgate is less likely to make a positive impression on you as part of a group of toothpaste than it is if I'm talking about just Colgate when I talk to you. So I understand that as a precinct committee person, you're going to have to do multiple candidate presentations when you do door knocking. I'm just saying that it's not ideal in terms of creating an impression to the voter, but if you have to do it, it's better than doing nothing at all. And it's perfectly acceptable to go to the person and say, my name is Richard Burke. I'm here on behalf of a number of candidates that I think would be good for our community. I have some of their information here to give to you. Here it is. And I hope you'll have a chance to look at this. And so it's much, you're throwing to chance the possibility that the voter is actually going to take a look at each of these candidates carefully. If you're presenting one candidate, it's just a fact of life that you'll make a better impression. And so if you have to do multiple candidate presentations, do them by all means. I know the reasons for it, but understand that it's not going to have the same impact as one. Are there any other questions before I go forward? Yes, yes. Okay, the lady disagrees with me, and that's what's great about America. And so, yep, and she says she's been doing it for years, and and I'll tell you this: I'm not always right. She could be absolutely right, Yep. And so this is information for you. Your mileage may vary. So whether I'm talking about literature drops or door-knocking campaigns or bulletin board campaigns or desktop activism, I'm not preaching gospel here. I'm doing what I've seen it to be effective in my experience, which may not be the same as your experience. And each of you has to take these things and do with them what you think is most appropriate. That's what's great about my job. I don't get to tell anybody what to do. I just say, here's a bunch of information. Use, spindle, or mutilate as you wish. And so I hope you'll be able to do that. Town hall meetings and retirement center presentations. My father worked in the life care services industry, and his particular company had a chain of very high-end life care service facilities around the country. And each of them had an activities director that was tasked with setting up activities for the residents to take part in, something that's fun to do. And these people are sometimes desperate for something new and interesting to do. Now, they won't do anything that favors a political candidate. Once in a while you might get lucky, but these retirement centers won't do anything that favors a particular candidate. But they will oftentimes do things for voter education. They will sometimes do things for forums. So the great thing about retirement centers is that they house people who vote in very high percentages. Our elderly citizens vote in very high percentages, and they also tend to be very prolific as donors and these other things. So why not reach out to them? And one way to do that is through retirement centers and life care facilities. Talk to the activities director and say, hey, there's only a few weeks left until the election. We'd like to do a voter education forum where we invite candidates to come and talk, or else we'd like to make sure that everybody's registered to vote or that they're aware that the election is coming forward. And as long as you're not pushing a specific candidate or campaign, they will generally work with you. You have to assure them, nope, we're not pushing a campaign, but go ahead and tell them it's a sort of a nonpartisan thing. Of course, once you're in there, you're going to be talking to the people who are living in the center. And you're going to be able to say, well, vote for who you like, but I kind of like this person here, or else have the candidates show up and say their things, and it'll give your candidates a chance to shine. And if your candidates are the best candidates, they will shine. So this is something you can do that doesn't cost much money, and the activities directors will be very, very grateful to you.
So that would be something that a treasurer or an assessor could do, is basically contact them, say they'd like to talk to the residents about what they do.
Yes.
So the assessor could sort of explain that whole thing and blah, 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 blah. And obviously they're running for re-election, but they're going to remember that they got information, or Rob could talk to them about, this is what the treasurer does, and not talk about his re-election, but talk about the duties and that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. That's another good approach to take. And of course, you've got to be an incumbent to get away with it. And that is an advantage of an incumbent. One of the things that drives me nuts where I live is in Beaverton, the libraries and other public facilities, community centers have meeting rooms, and you can't use them for anything political. But if an incumbent wants to talk about their office, they can get a free room reservation just like that. So if you're working for an incumbent, you've got advantages. You might as well take advantage of them. That's right. That's a very good point. Thank you very much. Also, is there, I don't know it, in Oregon it varies county by county, but is there a voter pamphlet published in this county? Occasionally. It's too late for this, so I'm not going to spend any time on it, but there's no reason why the Spokane Tea Party Patriots could not in the future, or even this November perhaps, on ballot measures, sponsor a voter pamphlet argument on why this ballot measure is good or bad, and have it gives you a presence in the community. It's not free. It costs a little bit of money, but it's a really good way to establish a presence in the community. Then you can copy off a bunch of them and show them to people who might want to be members of your organization. People join organizations they perceive to be accomplishing things. And if you can get clippings, voter pamphlet arguments, these kind of things during the course of a campaign, you're not only going to help your candidate, but you're also going to help grow your organization. So I always like to do that. And another really cool thing is it's too late for this one too. Hold a voter registration drive. Voter registration drives are great ways. It's a great way to get into the community to people who are not yet members of your club or of your Tea Party organization or grassroots organization. Find places in shopping malls to have voter registration drive, or at county fairs or whatever it is, and have it just be a voter registration drive. A lot of these private places are a little bit touchy about whether you're proposing something, but once again, if you can say you're just registering voters, whether they register to the Happy Party, the Green Party, the Republican Party, or any other party, you're going to process them. You just want to register voters. You're going to meet a lot less resistance. But when people are signing their voter registration cards and filling them out, you're going to shake hands with them. You're going to exchange names. You might be able to invite them to one of these meetings. You're going to find people that agree with you, and some of these people are going to have resources you don't yet have in your organization, or else be able to provide backup to resources that you already have in the organization. But again, probably 2/3 of these things are still time to do, but that one is for future. Yes?
I understand in the primary elections that the voter turnout is extremely low.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us suggestions on how to really increase voter turnout, how to encourage people to vote? I mean, here in Washington, all they've got to do is mail in a ballot, and I understand, I'm not sure if this is right or not, that if they don't have the stamp, they can still mail it and it gets delivered.
Well, you know, that's a good point, and Western Liberty Network does have a complete 1-hour training on getting out the vote. But I think the simplest thing this late in the campaign is to do a couple of different things. One is tell your friends to vote. You know, go home, make a list of your friends who are in this area, and just tell them to vote. Call them. Have you voted? Did you get your ballot yet? Are you going to turn it in? Just make a personal campaign to make sure the people in your life have had a chance to vote. And then contact the campaigns you care about. If they're running their campaigns properly, then they will be tracking who has voted and who has not voted. And you can volunteer to your campaign to ask that you contact lists of these people who have not yet voted and ask them to vote. With 3 weeks left, those are probably the two most important things that you can do to increase the percentage of people who vote who are ideologically, yes?
I think Facebook's a good medium to ask people to vote on if you have lots of Facebook friends as well.
Sure, that's a good point. And he said Facebook is a good way to get people to vote, and much is the case with what I mentioned before. When you type in your status, you can say, I've just cast my vote. Please remember to vote by such and such a date. Bing, and all your friends get it. That's what you're talking about, right? Same kind of thing. I saw another hand up someplace. Yes, ma'am.
Offer to drive people to the voting booth.
Offer to drive people to the voting booth. That's very good.
We don't have booths here.
That's right. It's all vote by mail now here.
It's all vote by mail.
Yeah, that's okay. But yes, ma'am.
It's probably expensive in that, but it'd be nice if you had buttons that when you were walking and handing out the literature, it says, I voted, did you? And ask them to wear it.
Yes.
They mail their votes.
She recommended that people have buttons that say I voted. You go around, and when you're talking to people about voting, if they've already voted, give them one too. Stickers are sometimes less expensive than buttons, but if you can afford buttons, what the heck, go for it. But that's a very good idea too. Things that make voting fun, a lot of times it works if you sort of give the impression that, wow, everybody's voting. You didn't vote yet? People don't like to be left out. People don't like to be marginalized. And sometimes a little social pressure can be used. Say, I guess I better vote. All right, I'll take a look. Where's my ballot? And that can sometimes work as well. But at this point, peer pressure, social pressure, reminding people, nagging people is the best way to go. Go to the campaigns you care about. Contact them and ask, how can you help get out the vote? They'll have lots of information for you. Yes, ma'am.
Most of the people who don't vote or don't get around to voting are Democrats. We don't want them to vote.
Yeah, the lady said that most of the people who don't vote are Democrats. We don't want them to vote. And what's funny is non-affiliated voters vote even less, and third-party voters vote even less, which really surprised me when I learned that. But at this point, you do want to identify the voters that you want to contact, and the best way to do that is to look to your friends, evaluate them individually as to whether you think that they'll vote correctly or not. Make sure they vote, and the campaigns, of course, that you contact will, of course, have already done that. If they've done their job properly, they will have micro-targeted the lists of people that they want to get out, and they will give you a list of people who have already been pre-screened as friendly, and you can contact them. Are there other questions before I go on? Okay. The last item I have listed here, and believe me, I do not claim that this is an exhaustive list. I've already thought of about 10 or 15 things I would like to add to this list, and you'll probably want to add things to this list too that aren't here, and by all means, please do so. The idea behind this training session is to sort of get the juices flowing, to get some ideas, and on some of these items, when I do the presentation along with the sheet, provide a little bit of insight as to how one can execute these basic things more efficiently. However, one thing that I always try to get organizations like this to do, and you probably already do, is hold an election night party. I think it is very important that any well-organized, well-run group like this one always have a time when, after all the work is over, they can share the victories, they can share the defeats, they can have pizza, they can have beer, they can watch the results on TV, they can talk about what it all means and debate it. And the idea behind these parties is that it builds camaraderie, it builds friendships, it allows people to refresh and put meat on the bones of people they might be acquainted with but don't know very well. This is what builds the fabric of an organization. And no matter how good the organization is, it can always be made better and better and better. And the human component of saying, you know what, we worked really hard, let's share this experience together, never works better than it does at an election night party. You've got a great venue here, you could probably hook up a TV to this thing, and it's just a lot, and it's also just a lot of fun, and sometimes you just need to have fun. Occasionally I recommend to organizations, you've got people that are giving you awesome information and training and whatever else is there, but every once in a while, go bowling, or something like that and have fun. I guess you have movie nights, and I heard that, and that's an excellent idea, but those are some things you can do. Now, usually it's not great when meetings go past, much past 2 hours, because people's eyes start to glaze over, and I'm not going to cause that to happen to you tonight. But I'm gonna call your attention to this sheet. I would like you to read it. Dealing with the media, do's and don'ts. And some of this relates to people who might interview with the media. Some of it is applicable to folks who just want to call into a talk show host. Some of it's applicable to people who might want to write letters to the editor, but it's good information for everyone. And I'm not going to go through this tonight because it would take me another 45 minutes to do it justice. But I will say this. I've known a lot of reporters. And yes, there are biased reporters. Nothing I'm about to say is meant to suggest that the media is not biased, because the media is biased. But I will tell you that the newspaper industry, and even to some extent radio, they're financially distressed industries. And major newspapers might have a few well-paid reporters and people on the editorial staff. But most of the reporters that they hire, particularly in the community newspapers, are very young, they're extremely poorly paid, they tend to be extremely liberal, right? And all other things being equal, they will push the liberal side. Okay? However, what they want more than anything is to go home. I'm not kidding. Okay? Think about it. You're getting paid slightly above minimum wage, which is what most of these reporters are getting paid. They are getting 4 or 5 stories that they have to get done by a deadline. If they don't get the deadline, they're in trouble. If they don't have the right slant, for example, if you don't cover the Pumpkin Festival in a way that the Pumpkin Festival sponsors like, the sponsors won't advertise with the paper, and the editor is going to be, on you, and you're going to be in trouble. I mean, these are the things that they have to deal with on their job. What they really want to do is get home. All of them are working on a novel at home or a play, right? This is how reporters are. And what they want to do is go home. And if you can make their job easier, you will be gold to them. And they will treat you better than they otherwise would treat you. If they get something wrong in the newspaper, don't call them up and bash them over the head with it. Even though you might be right, they've got the power, right? And so what you do is you just give them good information. Hey, I read your article. It was an excellent article, and I want to thank you for covering the story. I have some information that you probably didn't have during the story, and this may come up again, so I'd like to share it with you. How can I get that information to you? Okay? They're going to love that, and they're going to remember your name and contact information. And if you make yourself a resource for them, if you are the one that makes it easier for them to go home, they're going to come to you for something when they're on a tight deadline and they need the information quickly to close out a story. Remember that these people are human beings. They're young, they're liberal, they're idealistic, a little bit stupid, but they've got some education. And if you make their lives easier, then they will be much more inclined to see things your way. When you call, they will be more inclined to answer the phone. And if you follow these basic guidelines, this can be very helpful to you. Okay? So I encourage you to look at this, because in the next 3 weeks, these 2 pieces of paper, I'm not saying that they provide the silver bullet and they're going to make your candidate win or lose, but if you do the things that are in these 2 pieces of paper, you will have a better chance of having a positive impact on the candidates you care about than if you do not do the things in these papers. And that's what this is about, is helping people do things efficiently. This is what Western Liberty Network does. We offer annual conferences. We do live trainings at no cost to various organizations like this one. Western Liberty Network is a 501c3 that is funded by retired business people who want to build the grassroots, who believe in the grassroots. That's why we're able to do this. And so that is how it functions. That is what we're about. And I'm really hopeful that this organization will become a part of the network. The organizations that are a part of the network are not subordinate. Nobody gives anybody orders. Nobody tells anybody what to do. And on your table, along with all of this, it is not required, but I have these envelopes. And if you think that what we are doing tonight has value, I encourage you to make a contribution to Western Liberty Network, which helps us cover the costs of trips like this one. Yes, ma'am.
Can somebody be part of the organization that's on their own? Can somebody be join your group that's not part of, like if I'm not part of the grassroots?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Or does it have to be a
well,
group thing?
You don't have to. You don't. He said we'll take your money, but you don't have to donate any money. And becoming a member of Western Liberty Network is free of charge.
And we're free. You can join us for free.
And you can join this for free. I actually encourage people to join organizations like this one rather than be on their own. Now, sometimes if they live 100 miles out, it's good to do both.
No, but what I was thinking was if somebody wanted to get into, but do things for candidates and everything, and want to learn how to do the right things and everything. If they belong to your group on their own, then they could take what they've learned from you and go to their candidate and say, I can do this.
Of course. Now you'll notice that none of these things are copyrighted. I don't copyright any of these training materials, because what's more important to me than building networks and having people join is getting the information out. So although people can, it's not up here, but if you go to the Western Liberty Network website, there is a place for affiliates that shows them how they can become an affiliate organization of Western, and Cecily and John have been invited to do that. There is also a big red join button on the home page where an individual can join free of charge. But even if you do not join, the most important thing is to get the information out there. So even if you don't want to join, if you're not a joiner, you can go to the training page on the website and you can download all the companion documents. Now, each of these documents is meant to be provided with a training, and we're in the process of putting together videos for folks that can't make it to meetings. But these are companion documents. They're not meant to be self-contained, but they can be useful. So somebody who downloads these documents on the topics that are interested can gain something out of it, even if they never go to a meeting. But of course, we always encourage people to join fine organizations like this so they can learn from each other and they can be part of a group and have their skills amplified by those around them. So anyway, if you like what you heard tonight, I encourage you to offer a contribution of any size. If not, that's okay too. There's no charge. If you have questions, please let me know. And until I see you again, I would like to thank John and Cecily for hosting us, and thank you very much.
Really glad you came.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope you guys got a little inspiration there and some ideas of, what you can do for this election, and of course in November also. And, if we do want to change our community, we do need to be working locally. To me, it doesn't make any sense to be all worried about national elections. We've got to work locally. So remember, go to the website, Spokane Tea Party Patriots. You'll see the July 18th event for protesting or demonstrating or sending a message on the overpasses as far as immigration goes.
Yeah, just you'll see they're out there today on Facebook, and so share those. We really want to get hundreds of people out on the 18th. This will be a big thing. We're going to put a press release out. We're going to invite the media. We've already told, I shouldn't say we told them, but we checked with Department of Transportation and Washington State Patrol, made sure we could be on these overpasses. We can wave flags. We can we just can't put signs and attach them to the fences. Got that? So everything else is is all go. And so if we get hundreds of people out there and we have media attention, we can start to light a fire here in Spokane, and we need to do that. Edie.
Is that the gun show weekend?
No, we are not going to do that gun show.
And I have a surgery.
So we'll be doing the September gun show.
Yeah. So that's Friday. Friday the 18th.
And then remember August, I think I said 20th. And then, of course, our next regular meeting is August 12th. And we'll have the militia plus something else. Bruce.
Two more candidates for election office.
Okay. Dave White and Doug Orr, do you want to say a little bit before we close this down? You got to come up here, Doug. And you stand behind the chair.
Thank you. I was going to be here for the whole meeting. I had an obligation across town. And one thing that I was taught to do early on in the political process is not sacrifice your friendships for politics. And so I've kept some avenues open on the other side of the fence. And so I was over there talking with them tonight, and I actually heard a candidate, and he said this. He got up and he said, he was talking about gun violence, and he says, I'm going to attack gun violence head on. And he says, I like the Constitution, but for gun violence, we're going to have to find something better. Said that. Be afraid of someone like that. Okay? I'd rather not say. I'd just rather not say. He's probably not going to ever speak here. But George Mason was really the architect of the Bill of Rights. And he said about the militia, he said, they asked him what this was, what the Second Amendment was. And he said, the militia, what is it? He said, it is the whole people except for a few politicians. And he knew who was going to screw it up. And I've said this before, you can make all the laws you want, but until you change people's thinking, you're not going to conquer this gun violence thing. As sheriff, I'm going to hit it head on. I'm going to incorporate into the crisis intervention training a way to intervene people, not only people who have been involuntarily committed, but people who have voluntarily committed themselves in the mental health process. So you're going to see a lot of good things happen at the street level, boots on the ground, without all that legislation that just restricts our freedoms. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Doug. And one of the pieces of paper that were around the table was something there saying vote no on 594. You might want to read it over, but vote no on 594, guys. Dave White? Oh, Dave isn't here? Well, you're not running for anything, so you don't want to talk to us anyway. Yeah, right. When does that city council thing happen? Thursday. Okay, we'll all keep our eye on it. Okay, cool.
Thursday afternoon, 3:30, Lower City Council. They're going to have an open forum meeting for the public. And what they're going to discuss is how they're going to go about appointing the new councilman to replace Steve Salvatore. So if you want a conservative there, obviously there's a majority that are liberal. The three that we'll be picking will be Mr. Stuckert, Mr. Allen, and the new, can't think of her name, Candace Mum, will be the three on the committee that will be making that selection. But if you want them to consider somebody that is more like Steve Salvatore was, you need to be there and be a voice. Otherwise, they're going to pick a liberal, and they're going to have a majority. And it's your time to talk to the council and let them know what you want.
And I understand that that's not just a majority, but it's a supermajority, which is a veto-proof majority. And really, really bad news for Spokane City. So definitely be there. Anything else? This Thursday, Dave? I believe that's what he said. Thursday, 3:30. Was that right, Dave? Yes. Thursday, 3:30. Okay, we are done, guys. I just really thank Richard and his wife, Natasha, for coming up this way. Really appreciate their information. Be sure to take it home with you. And you know, we're all on Facebook. We're all on the websites. Phone numbers are all over the place, so keep in touch.